The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet, on demand on iTunes and on YouTube, and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. Welcome to the show. Well, today we're talking about the Middle East, where there have been a number of very significant developments, some of them predictable, some of them outright bizarre. First of all, I would say almost predictable. The ceasefire is not holding. The Israelis pulled out, and the Palestinians started firing rockets into Israel again. Once again, largely ineffective, but they are firing rockets into Israel. Israel has said that, and it has, by the way, already, it will retaliate tit for tat for every single attack that it receives, whether it is an attack by air, such as a rocket attack, whether it is an attack by land, such as a suicide bombing attack or the building of a tunnel to smuggle arms. So Israel will retaliate for each one of those violations of the ceasefire. Meanwhile, George Mitchell, who was appointed to be the special envoy to the Middle East by President Obama, is returning almost with his tail between his legs. I'm going to read you what is in today's Haaretz newspaper published in Israel. United States Middle East envoy George Mitchell said the new U.S. administration's push for Israeli-Palestinian peace after the war in the Gaza Strip faced substantial hurdles, and he predicted further setbacks. The somber assessment by former U.S. Senator George Mitchell followed 2 days of talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders about shoring up a shaky ceasefire that ended Israel's 22-day offensive on Gaza. Mitchell said consolidating the truce and addressing immediately the humanitarian needs of Gaza's 1.5 million residents were the Obama administration's priorities. Then we must move forward, he added, apparently referring to stalled peace talks that have now been derailed by the war. Earlier today, Mitchell told Likud chair Benjamin Netanyahu that he plans to return to Israel shortly after February's general elections. During their meeting, Netanyahu stressed the need to counter Iran's negative influence in the region in order to advance talks with the Palestinian Authority. Netanyahu added that if elected prime minister, he would continue peace talks with the Palestinians, but that Israel's security interests would, quote, take precedence. Well, in addition to that, Netanyahu says that he, if he is elected prime minister, will not follow the current prime minister's Olmert's promise to remove certain settlements. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the bizarre. Did you hear this one, Boaz Frankel? A leader of Hamas today declared victory over Israel. Now, since the death count was 100-1, Hamas versus Israeli, that's an odd way of declaring victory. But hey, that's the breaking news now from the Middle East, that Hamas has declared victory over Israel. Did you hear of that one, Boaz?
Oh, I certainly did, Gary. And a lot of the world actually probably does see this as a Hamas victory, only because the Hamas is still in control of the Gaza Strip. This is the kind of victory that the Hamas is claiming to the rest of the world. it was Benjamin Netanyahu that made the statement that if he becomes Prime Minister of Israel, his intention is to oust the Hamas completely from the Gaza Strip. He said it in the, I believe, in the Jerusalem Post and in the other newspaper that you mentioned, Haaretz. And he also said that the current Israeli government, led by the outgoing Israeli government, led by Ehud Olmert, have made a big mistake. And the mistake that this government did is that they left the Hamas intact in the Gaza Strip. It is evident that the Israeli army is going to have to go back into the Gaza Strip in order to finish the job. And if you're going to do it, why do it a second time? So this is what Netanyahu is claiming.
Well, there's more. That's very sad information indeed, in my opinion, because I don't see an end to this violence. Of course, let's not forget that Hamas is bent on destroying the state of Israel, the entire state of Israel. But we'll get back to that in a moment. But you know that cute little rabbit that the Hamas television has been putting on there to talk about how it was going to stamp out the Israelis, and this is how they're indoctrinating the children there, the Palestinian children. The Hamas rabbit has died. It was killed off by the Israeli attacks, and its dying words were to curse Israel. Now, that's not a joke. This is what they are publishing to the kids in the Palestinian territories. Yes, the Easter Bunny was killed by the Israelis. Curse Israel. I mean, this is the way they indoctrinate the children. And, so long as they continue to do that, I don't know how we're going to have peace there in the Middle East. I don't know if you saw, Boaz Frankel, Jimmy Carter, former president of the United States, this week on Larry King Live. But Jimmy Carter said, to recap, in part, I've met with leaders of Hamas, and they have told me that they will just stop firing those rockets if Israel opens up the border between the Gaza and Israel. Of course, he neglects to say that that border was closed because the suicide bombers were coming through, and the suicide bombing stopped when this wall that some people think is strangling the Gaza was put into place.
Well, Gary, Israel doesn't need Jimmy Carter in order to understand what is going on in the Gaza Strip and what has happened till now. In fact, reports from the Jerusalem Post and the Haaretz, and by the way, there were not just the internal newspapers of Israel, but other international newspapers have picked up on some very interesting stories about some of the Hamas gunmen that the IDF had captured during the conflict in the Gaza Strip have made some very interesting statements, clearly